Welcome everybody to another one of my podcasts, and today's a little bit different. As you can see, we are in person with the brilliant Matt Woodford from Microsoft Dynamics. Hello, Matt.
Hi there.
Wave to the camera. Wave to our audience.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about, actually give it a title of this, because normally I have a thing in the background, I've realised. The Future of CRM, I believe, is what we're going to talk about. So without further ado, Matt, who, what, why, when, where, and let's get into this. And those of you that can't see, we have an awesome Venn diagram on a screen behind here, which we're going to, I think, pick some things from. But I'll shut up. Matt, over to you.
Great. Well, Matt Woodford, I work at Microsoft today, and the last 4 years I've been covering our Dynamics 365 customer engagement portfolio. Interesting you use the term CRM. Actually, we see this as a set of really intelligent, collaborative apps that span sales, service, marketing, and everything else that you need to deliver a different client experience and to bring teams together for a great employee experience as well.
So not much then. Now, you may well have seen the poll I was running yesterday on LinkedIn, which has generated some interesting debate. If we kind of take a step back, in its rawest form, what is a CRM system?
I think that's an interesting question, and I'm not even sure it's a great debate to get into, because CRM's become a bit of a four-letter word, and we don't believe in it as a term. We don't believe in it as a category. Microsoft's got quite a different perspective on what teams need to succeed.
Yep.
As I said earlier, kind of starting with the data, the insight, automation, collaboration. Something much smarter and very different to what I think the word CRM conjures up. And so I think the key thing is we've got to start with who's the person we've got in front of us, what are they trying to achieve, and what do they need to succeed in the role. And thinking about your point on LinkedIn, conjures up memories of tools of oppression, systems that were put there, systems of record for management to have oversight and control of their teams. I think the way things have moved, especially over the last couple of years, really accelerated in how can we enable people to succeed, be productive. And we're talking about people that are now, of course, probably working from home.
Yep.
Business travel's probably been cut in half for good, even as we return to the new normal. And these teams are now working in a distributed way. And so how do I support you, actually, as your manager, if you want to take that mindset, when you're working from home and I'm working from my home and you haven't got your team around you? So the idea of how we bring these people together and help them to be successful by taking this world of data that's now around us because of millennial digital buyers and buying circles that are now touching everywhere in different channels at their own pace and at their own leisure. They expect us to have some of that context, but salespeople can't be expected to rationalize all of that, interpret it and decide what to do next. We need to lend them a hand.
And I think you raise an interesting point there around the CRM conjures up the old kind of, I'm north of 40 now, south of 45, so you can figure it out. But if I reflect on my kind of journey and use of CRM over the years, yes, it was fundamentally a management tool, KPIs, ex-recruitment consultants, so calls made, meetings made, CVs out, and that was kind of it to a certain extent. However, as I started to, and the irony is actually probably if I reflect on my days at Michael Page in terms of how we used our CRM and then organisations I work with between Michael Page to where I am now were probably even worse. But certainly towards the end of my time, this is 10, 15 years ago now, we used it as a client relationship management tool. And certainly for the larger organisations where they had set, the client has set certain rules of engagement with them, which were then set out very clearly on the account page of said organisation. Do not do this, do this person's the account lead, any questions, speak to them, so that if an employee then went against that, you had a system of record will go, well, hang on a second, why did you not go into the system and check and read? And if you did go into the system and read and see that, why did you then carry on to do what you do? You then move forward and reflecting on more from professional services. It's my relationships are in my phone, they're in email, they're in my Outlook address book. I don't want to share my relationships with anybody. It's my contact. It's not the contact of the of the firm. But as you rightly say, the world we now find ourselves in, even pre-pandemic, the just information overload of data and multiple kind of information points coming in, yet probably still being almost CRM is being buried under a layer of another tech on top of it. And is it actually, and I've just thought of this, more of a collaboration relationship management system rather than a client relationship management system?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think it's worth peeling back some of the layers of the onion, really. And most people probably won't realize how much has changed in the last few years at Microsoft. Just to put this in context, I mean, I joined in 2014. This was a $230 billion company. It's now a $2.3 trillion company.
Yep.
And through that period, Microsoft's business applications division within the context of the Microsoft Cloud, it's a multi-billion-dollar unit in its own right, and it's growing at a 50% clip. That's accelerated up to 50%, and it's going further still. And the reason that something like that can happen is when several things come together at once. So it's a different expectation from the clients. It's a different mindset around how we're engineering the Microsoft Cloud. And I think it's also a load of investments that we put into actually people, the right people to help with customer success, with sales and everything else. And the story that people are buying into is precisely that, it's going to start with the data first. Where are people interacting day to day? Where does the data come in? It could come from anywhere. But in the context of Microsoft, we have a global hyperscale cloud platform where you could run your operations, your products, which are digital, may be operating there. Your people are there day to day, across Microsoft 365, across Teams. And so in the context of all of that, yes, customer engagement, sales teams, but also legal, finance teams, whoever needs to be involved. You might have a buying circle of 10, you might have a client team of 10 or beyond. And so how do we bring that data, turn it into insight, and then put it to work in the flow of work of those people? And yes, it might be a manager, but it might be a client lead, client partner, it might be a salesperson, could be customer service. And so in that context, I don't think the idea of a CRM or an ERP or a this or that, even the new fancy exciting categories that are getting the big valuations at the moment, I don't think that's the issue. I think it's more, how can we harness all of that data? How can we then turn it into insight? And then how can we automate, anticipate, and where necessary, of course, then put that in front of people so they can take the action. And I think what's really unique with Microsoft is just that. We've got the cloud to land the data. We've got the AI to turn it into the insight. We've got the automation layer to then be able to push that out across any channel. And then the apps. I mean, the apps is kind of the icing on the cake. So you've got the, those structured process apps like you described, maybe for sales. Then you've got the human stuff where we come together, create, collaborate, communicate, like Teams or LinkedIn as another example. And so how does all of that come together, and how do we leverage that data and that insight? And I think that's the story that people now see as being really important. It's, how can we make the most of this as an organization in a world of distributed work?
That's
with a lot of data.
Again, picking up, continuing your analogy and peeling back the onion. There's a lot there, and if I reflect on the last 5 years of what I've been doing, and you speak to sales leaders, it's tricky because we're talking kind of an ideal, perfect world in terms of bringing all this collaboration together, but still you've got the silo mentality potentially within organizations. You've got each business unit is driven by different incentives or kind of end goals, which then creates that internal friction, should I say, to potentially release the possibility that we now have in terms of everything that you've talked. Because everything you talked about is imminently capable today. If you're building it from the bottom up, no legacy systems, no people issue, no what have you, it'll be all good to go. So from a sales and marketing perspective, in terms of who are the majority of the audience on this podcast and this vlog, what are you starting to sort of hear and see in the market with the people that you're talking to, in terms of, are we starting to see a dawn of realization that this is the direction of travel that we're going now, or is it still, but we've always done it this way and this feels too difficult, therefore we're not going to do it?
I think the change has happened. Mm-hmm. It's happened a lot faster than any of us were ready for.
Yeah.
But I think we've come up with some of the answers along the way very quickly, much faster than we expected. Yeah. And if we pivot to sales for a moment, I think this same fundamental story holds true, which is actually it's the customer's data, it's the client's data, it's the client that's engaging somewhere on some channel, and we're trying to then engage with them in context. And it might be that I'm engaging with them from home over Teams, but I still need to understand what the various touch points have been across my organization or the external network, and turn that into something useful and constructive. And so I think at the heart of all of this, and I follow your podcast, and I follow the kind of community you're a part of around sales and revenue operations. Yeah. Underneath it all, it does come to the data. And I think the key is, if you've got a single common data model, as we call it at Microsoft, that underpins all of these systems, that can really help you to understand the different signals in the data. Yeah. It sounds basic, but actually if you can't make head or tail of what these different touch points mean and interpret them, how can you ever build a picture of relationship analytics between your organization and the client? So I think Microsoft comes at this with a bit of a head start in the sense that common data model, which actually underpins the Microsoft graph, that's Teams, that's Outlook and Exchange, that's LinkedIn, that's Dynamics, that's whichever app you've chosen to build on top of that same shared platform to leverage that model. And so it sounds like it's the answer to everything, which actually in a way it can be, but you can start one step at a time. So take sales as an example. Do I need a solution right now to help me generate demand and manage leads? What does that mean today? Well, it might mean I want to run some virtual events. And it'd be pretty cool if I could do that as a sales person on Teams. I use Teams day to day. Can I build a landing page? Can I invite my clients? Can I host it in Teams? Can I use the day-to-day experience that I'm familiar with? And can I capture the insights from that and the actions, and can I take that back and do something with it day-to-day in my flow of work, whether that's Teams or if I like to go to Dynamics and work on my opportunities there. And all of that signal, someone's got to deal with that. And at Microsoft, we run 20,000 events a year. And we plan them all through Dynamics marketing as it happens, regardless of if that's an in-person event, a third-party event like the Consumer Electronics Show, which we help deliver with them. Whatever that may be, we then take all of that signal and we put it to our what we call demand response team. And they sit there in front of a machine learning scored list, prioritized things to follow up on, people who need some help, and that list is prioritized based on a bunch of things, but guides them through sequentially what to do in a really productive way. And it's been a while now that Microsoft's been setting all of the benchmarks in natural language understanding, machine reading comprehension, computer vision. Like Microsoft is tier 1 AI. And no one doubts that Microsoft nails it when it comes to productivity, how people work and what we do. And so you bring that all together in the context of a sales challenge. I need some leads, and then I want to follow up on those leads in a smart way. That's just one example of where, between Teams, between, let's say, LinkedIn and whatever else needs to come together in that scenario, plus the AI, you've got something really simple to put in place that already has you leveraging this common data set. You don't have to adopt something new. You're on LinkedIn. You might be on Teams. You're probably using Outlook or Exchange or whatever else it is. So it's just about unlocking that data. And there was a really interesting Forrester piece about the conversion of sales technology and the confusion that's come about with all of these new categories. And when you actually unpack that and look at what's at the center of all of it, despite all of these overlaps, at the center it's what are the activities? What are the conversations? What are those interactions? If they're all on the Microsoft cloud, the Microsoft graph, on a common data model, why would you then invest all of the time to try and extract them and stick them somewhere else? Because the minute you've done that, your sales engagement platform, which is a great idea in principle, is operating on a different data model. And how does your customer success team now align with them and understand what's going on there? How does the perhaps legal team or whoever else needs to help out with a deal later in the cycle engage and provide the support in context? All of those different things, unless there's a shared view and understanding in the middle, it's impossible to do. And what's special about Microsoft is, instead of running around and buying up every company in every category and then trying to figure out how do we integrate these things, well, actually, we'll buy an integration company. Or collaboration, remote working, that's the new thing. Let's partner with some big player. So, we built everything from the ground up. It shares that common data model, and then from there, I think the world's your oyster, really, and you've just got to pick one problem, one team at a time, and see what makes sense. And I think, Dynamics 365 sales has been recognized as a leader for 11 years in a row by Gartner. I think that speaks, volumes about the value that's there, but it's always based on that underlying principle and platform, which is what the sales application sits within.
And I think what's interesting in terms of picking up your point there about the example that you gave is it's the word smart in terms of making smart decisions and the right decisions, whereas previously, let's take the event example. And I know anybody watching and listening, we all know this to be true. An event is run probably by marketing.
Right.
Even pre-COVID, you get a bunch of people turning up or not turning up, but they will have registered. So you have an email address of sorts. They probably just get chucked into a system of record. Could be your CRM, could be your Microsoft CRM system, could be a marketing platform, what have you. Then what? There's always very limited follow-up to anybody that turns up to events. Are they people we know? Are they people that we don't know? Are they people that even should be coming to our events because it's not even our target audience? And then it's like, what was the ROI on that event in terms of that we spent? Whereas what we know to be true now, with some clever smarts and some clever people creating the smarts, you can now have a much more effective marketing campaigns, event campaigns, in-person, ex-person, whatever, bring them all into one place and then start to kind of, in my view, and this is, you mentioned the Forrester piece, there's Seth at Forrester talking about kind of dynamic guided selling, which is breaking this barrier down between, and I'm picking on sales and marketing, between sales and marketing, so that actually you create that single lead flow from, I don't know who you are, to now we're sending you an invoice as a happy customer and you're going to renew with us 3 years later, and you can upsell and cross-sell. And I'm seeing Microsoft doing a good job of putting promoted content in front of me at the moment, but you can now integrate, and I'm no web expert or website expert, but you can now integrate Sitecore directly into Dynamics 365, which is like a website CMS system. So now that gives you access to kind of web data. Then if you look at the direction of travel that SalesNav is going, in terms of SalesNav Insights, and certainly if you've got a corporate license to Sales Navigation, you haven't seen this, go and have a look at it, type in the company account, and now what LinkedIn or Sales Navigator is surfacing is engagement on company page, engagement on website, engagement on email, engagement on ads, which is interesting. But this all sounds well and good. From my experience, and I'll be interested to get your view on some of the clients that don't mention any names, but the clients that you work with, is that and this is what's coming out of the poll at the moment that I'm running on LinkedIn, is adoption, is the actual human interface between the amazing platforms, the environment that you are able to create within the Microsoft ecosystem. But fundamentally, at some point, it still requires a human being, seller, marketer, legal, finance, manager, CEO, to go into a system of record, go into a dashboard that's maybe spun up through Power BI or one of your biz apps or what have you, to then do something. And if people are not coached or equipped to kind of understand what this data is telling them and then what they should do next, and even if it's being guided and suggested by AI, and Mary Shea at Outreach is talking, about in terms of predictable revenue streams now. And I know we've touched on this in terms of your forecasting tool. So what are you seeing within your own organisation with your clients in terms of how is the human side kind of reacting to the art of the possible now, which sounds pretty awesome to me.
Yeah, I think that Microsoft's probably a really good example to keep going with a bit here, because we mentioned the events bit. You know, we were running maybe 6,000 events online, and the rest of the 20,000 were in person. Now we're doing everything overnight online. And of course the sales organization didn't just say, can marketing run some more? They couldn't meet their clients, so they wanted to run 10 times the events that they previously would have done. And I think this particular role I've been doing for the last 4 years within our business group, I'm looking at how our solutions succeed across partner, marketing, sales, ops, every side of the business. And I think what it's given me a sense of is actually the customer experience, the client experience at the heart of it. We can go on about sales, day in, day out, but the issue is that we must not lose sight of the customer, of the client. And so, just kind of pointing back again, we could get into the detail around, have we got an incredible, ML-based forecasting solution? Absolutely, yes. We can talk about that a bit more. Have we got a sequencer? Does it work with LinkedIn, Sales Navigator? Yes, great. Can we do guided selling? Can we do next best actions? Absolutely. Have we got a customer data platform, that can take all of this data and execute it? All of those things stand true, but the thing that can't be denied is if you're trying to take data out of somewhere, put it into its own silo just for the benefit of one team and one process. That's, I think, where the whole thing comes unraveled. But back to your point around, let's say some examples internally. So we generate these leads, we manage them, within our demand response team. That's great. Our corporate team, which is, if you like, our higher volume segment, if you like, people will tend to have more accounts. They will work digitally. I mean, they've been doing call recording, for a long time now, hundreds of thousands of hours of call recording. They've got all this data also coming through about client interactions. And so this raging debate about the management tool, of oppression versus the how do we help our people to do better. We've been, walking that walk and learning as customer zero of our own solutions internally. And I think the way we kind of see this now is salespeople, if we take this corporate example, are incredible at dealing with clients. They're incredible at managing the buying process together with the client. They're really good probably at forecasting that something's going to close, and probably near enough to within a month or so, but that might be next quarter in fact. And we're introducing some funny behaviors in terms of what we want to project up the chain if we make that all person based. And we're taking time away from being with clients. So actually in that particular team, there is machine learn based forecasting. 12 out of 14 quarters it's been closer than any person could put their finger on. And so that's just become over time accepted that it's a better way of going about things. The call recording, the conversation intelligence, initially you think, well, why is this here? What's this going to be? How will it be used against me? There's no one in the management team that ever uses this as some kind of a tool to, come in and drive some heavy feedback. But it's used to gather trends and insights. You think about what's happened over the last couple of years. The topics that surface with customers have changed pretty quickly. What's the trend for customers to need financial help? Beyond discounting, exceptional terms. What's really changed in their business? So the ability to take these signals and abstract them and get patterns and trends and be able to set better maybe marketing and sales strategies up on the back of those insights. Those are the kind of things that people see, that really changes the game for us. And then from a sales perspective, so now you mean I don't have to take any notes on the call when I'm sat here with you, Alex. I just, maybe I dial from my sequence and it goes out on Teams, or maybe I'm in Teams and you're calling me. The AI is running, the transcript's captured, the actions are taken, and all of those things are prompted for me in a call summary and back again in my next best actions. It's all there, so I don't have to enter anything. Everything that is going on in terms of AI is either giving me time back from my forecasting and taking a difficult conversation away. It's and it's helping us plan better as a business in terms of resources and investments, because we're accurate on that. And it's taking admin overhead away from me because I don't have to log stuff. I don't have to lose eye contact with you so that I can scribble a note down or hammer away on a keyboard. So for us, this has really become a complete reality to the point where we do host people and walk them through how we run our sales and marketing operations, how this whole organization operates. And it's it's that same kind of world where no one prepares a presentation for a business review. We run our revenue operations live through the tools that are there in real time, and that takes away that wasted time and awkward moment about why is your number different to mine as well.
Exactly. Or out of date because you did it last week and then something's changed and you haven't had time to do it.
But whether I'm looking at it in a in a live version of a PowerPoint format because that's how I want to see it in the meeting, or I'm looking at it in Power BI, or I'm looking in my forecasting view, which of course people can still look over, override and comment on. It's all still the same data model. There's no rekeying. There's no, integration to some other thing. It just works together by design.
Because it just works together. And I think if you're not using the transcripts on Teams, by the way, which I started using, it's genius, to your point, in terms of just not having to scribble notes, because my handwriting is terrible. And if I go back and try, it's like, what was that word that I wrote there? But this and the whole voice thing, and you touched on this in terms of the complexity of the market out there in terms of the sales technology, or the sales and marketing technology. MarTech, we all know the MarTech community is just the amount of solutions that are out there, but we're now seeing this kind of, it's almost this war for who wants to be the dashboard of choice. And what I think is so great about what you're doing, and I'm now experiencing this firsthand where I am in my new position, is that fundamentally I can access the information in whatever application I want to be in. And we were touching on the fact that I'm now on Edge, certainly at work, because I go into the Edge browser. It's tied into the corporate system, so the minute I fire up the browser, yes, you have the day's news in this bit, but the top bit is all my activity that I've been doing, and reminders and nudges and this and that, and last recent documents, and it's just making life considerably easier. So, I mean, wow! In terms of, I think about the CRM system that I used back in my recruitment days, which was just a record of, which is a system of record, really.
Lotus Notes for me,
just
absolutely.
Lotus Notes, those days well. To kind of where we are now, it's not even really a single thing anymore. If I think about it, is it really?
It's not, and I think sometimes we also miss the point when we hammer on about sales. In the end, everyone is selling, and companies need to grow their revenue with their clients. But actually, let's take a bank. It's pretty hard for you to single someone out and say by title that's a salesperson in a sales team. They might be a mortgage advisor, or they might be a relationship manager, whatever it is. They're dealing with clients, and the experience they need day to day. Actually, it might be more in Teams versus some other system, or it might be a slightly different experience that they want to tailor just to what they need in their particular department industry. And so if you really zoom out at this level, we just announced this week that Microsoft's cloud for financial services is generally available from the 1st of November here in the UK, in the US, in Canada. And there, this whole story about how can we bring this data together on a trusted, secure cloud with this one data model, then to be able to leverage it in the context of any channel for client onboarding, for client servicing, across that whole life cycle, and the mid and back office to be able to tap into that and work as a team seamlessly. That's the kind of proposition that no one else can bring forward. And it's not always about, is it a sales development professional working in a sales center? Mm-hmm. Actually, client engagement's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And so yes, we've got an answer for that. But at the same time, 97% of the Fortune 500 have adopted our platform. Mm-hmm. And that side of our business applications group is growing at triple digits.
Right.
That just talks to the need to be able to, sometimes there isn't an app for that.
Yeah.
And you just need to create something that fits the need, but it still needs to be underpinned by that shared data. And so all of these conversations about sales this, marketing that, the customer service folks don't get it, and everything else, it is hard when we consistently erect the barriers between the teams. Yeah. Of course, everyone wants their own choice and control, and it's a lot easier for me to set my own thing up versus work with you. But we are putting hurdles in front of each other, and we're definitely making it impossible for the customer or client to get what they expect. And I think, the answer isn't all Microsoft. That's not the message here. It's more, we're starting with the data. We're running AI over the top of the data. Mm-hmm. We're then trying to drive that into whatever canvas makes sense. And sometimes it's virtual, it's automated. Sometimes it's human-led.
Yeah.
And whatever that is, and even if it's a third party, there is an opportunity for it to sit on that same data model, to sit on that same cloud. And if you're a bank, and you're operating multinationally or globally, it's pretty hard when you look at some of these other players and solutions that they've decided, collaboration, we're going to have to partner there or we'll buy one. BI, we're going to have to partner there or we'll buy one. How do we integrate this stuff? What about marketing? And you look at this and you think, what am I signing up for here, and where is my data actually going? And for each of those things, it might be a bit of California, a bit of Amsterdam, somewhere else, around the world, and people can't operate like that. So there's a fundamental truth about the data model. Mm-hmm. There's a fundamental truth about where and how people work. Yeah. Which, let's say, in my case, it happens to be Teams or LinkedIn or wherever it is. And then there's this issue about security, trust, and compliance. And I think, in the startup world and the sales tech world, people are very entrepreneurial by nature. Mm-hmm. Risk tolerance is pretty high. But, let's not forget that our customers, our clients, are very concerned about their data rights, where their data's going, what's being done with it. And so I think one of the things that really stands out when we work with folks is, yes, they want to be data first. They want to move to a proactive model with automation and intelligence, but they have to keep that trust with their clients so they know the brand impact's going to be
huge,
irreversible.
And in terms of and this is fundamentally what it all boils down to for me is that, and you said this very eloquently, is actually about your client. Now, your client could be obviously the internal client experience in terms of the employee experience that you drive, but fundamentally, the world that we now find ourselves in is a digital virtual world for the most part. Well, it's very nice to be back in person in this environment, I hasten to add. But clients are now going to have a certain expectation as to what good is in terms of an engagement with an organisation. I don't care whether it's B2C or B2B. Right. There will be an expectation that, and this will be built on an experience they've had elsewhere with someone in the same industry as you. And organisations that start to get this and understand this and drive this, and I think you are right, that fundamentally everybody is selling in some shape or form, and everything from the marketing team touch the clients, your prospects or clients in some shape or form, to credit control, to your legal team when they have to have that the conversation with with your clients. So everybody has to be part of this, and we historically have put up barriers to this and created those silos. But if you take the HubSpot, I think it was HubSpot research that said, from a buyer perspective, that 1 in 3 millennials don't want to engage with a salesperson, full stop. Right. Now, that's not saying they don't want to engage with a human being. Right. They just don't want to be sold to. And as dare I say, the older generation of buyer starts to not be in a position to buy anymore because they retire, and the Gen Z and Gen Alpha is Gen Alpha, I think it's 15 to 18 or whatever it is that are coming through. This is how they live. This is how they work. I mean, the lack of human interaction is a slightly different conversation to be had. So again, organisations that are starting to think about and do this now, rather than we'll park this conversation, for another 5 years because we've got to put in something else or we've got to do this and that. They're going to start to fall by the wayside versus the organisations that recognise this is a fundamental human, cultural, business shift in terms of how we need to do business, which is underpinned, as you say, by data. And there is, I've said this in the past that B2B doesn't have as much data as the Amazons of the world, or Microsoft from a consumer perspective. But I would argue they probably do. They just don't know where it is or what to do with it or how to even service it.
Yeah, I think, and the pandemic was interesting. Plenty of people saw that something like that would be coming. Of course, they couldn't decide exactly when and what to do about it. There were also people who saw, this change to digital engagement coming, and they started doing something about it beforehand. And I'll give you a client example with ABN AMRO. They're one of the top banks in the Netherlands, and they decided that they wanted to be the best for digital, end-to-end experiences for their clients, and a lot of them are international. And they decided long before all of the last 2 years happened that they wanted to try. Let's start with mortgages as an example, that their advisors could meet with their clients directly online. And why not? Why shouldn't I be able to log into my banking app or my banking portal and meet an advisor and get some advice? And that's never going anywhere. We might do some prelim research, but when I get to a complicated, high-stakes kind of decision, I just want an expert. I've read it, I get it, but I want someone that's done it before to tell me it's going to be okay. Now, they are essentially doing that via Teams. Okay, it's the platform layer that Teams is built on, as it happens, but they can do that through Teams. The person who's on the end of the call, a mortgage advisor, is that a sales development rep? No, they need something suitable for their role, and we've got them covered on that. And so then when things really hit and we moved to a remote world, they were able to scale that up, first across kind of advisory services and investment products, and then business and retail business lines to 3,000 people, like in a really short period of time. And it was a huge edge for them. And so I think, we can get at times a little bit hung up on, and I'd love to get into the detail, do we do relationship analytics? I mean, that's an area of deep passion for me that I think we've got something truly unique. Same thing for revenue operations and how we manage, our organisation, our business. These are all interesting examples. Demand generation, managing leads. Can we do 20 to 40% increase in lead conversions? Yes, we can. But I think, the reason people buy the Microsoft option is more because they see a bigger picture, not just they want to fix one problem in one team in one country, right now. And I think the thing that's interesting is what a great job these companies do of focusing on the one problem and how well they tackle it, and the thought leadership they can provide about, actually, if I am engaged in outreach day to day, how many touches do I need to do over the next 10 days, 20 days, 30 days? What mix of channels? And so I think the thing I'd really love to see us do more of is, within our community, how can we help share that type of best practice and knowledge? Because the tools can do it all. It's actually more, I think, the knowledge and the insight, and then the ability to apply that in your business that matters. Because all of those systems that came before, probably did a great job for what they were built for, but only when they were built together with the people using them. And aim to serve them. And so I think that's the real issue. It's always still going to be the people and the humans. The robots aren't taking over just yet.
Awesome. I think that's a brilliant place to kind of end, in terms of it all boils down to that knowledge and insight piece. And if we can start to unlock that and start to kind of bring that to bear, you can start to, no matter what role you're in, actually, as we're talking about, open your mind a little bit to there is a better, more effective, smarter, to what you're doing, to smarter way of doing things. So That's been absolutely awesome, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and knowledge.
Thanks for having me. And I know we talk a broad vision and a big picture, but to leave you with a thought, really, it's been a while now that Microsoft has been setting these benchmarks in AI. It's widely known as a hyperscale cloud platform, to land your data and to turn that into insight. But I don't think people realize, Microsoft has been recognized as a leader in automation, digital process automation, robotic process automation, low-code application platforms, business intelligence, a customer data platform, customer analytics and sales, now 11 years in a row as a leader per Gartner, then service, field service, finance, supply chain, and that's before we even get to Teams and LinkedIn and other stuff like that. So, the story really is true under the hood per the experts as well when you look at it, but I think they all come at it through this very narrow prism of their category. And I'd encourage folks to think maybe about that bigger picture, and how we actually all then can come together as teams if we start with the data and the flow of work. And then go from there, and we can layer on the sales problem one at a time, for sure.
You heard it here first. Matt, brilliant. As ever, thank you so much for tuning in to a live podcast on this. Not live per se, maybe I should do one of those, I don't know. Matt, I'll put all links to everything we talked about in here, there somewhere. You can find Matt on LinkedIn if you want to follow and learn more about what he's up to in this world. But as ever, to my audience, thank you for tuning in and listening. If there's anybody that you want to be on the podcast, you know what to do. Let me know. If you want to be on the podcast, let me know. Otherwise, Matt, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And I'll see you all next week. Thank you.